this session is designed to be sort of practical and reflective. You don't have to be a technical expert to be able to enjoy it or understand it. So for those of you that perhaps haven't necessarily yet taken your first steps using it, or you're just in the very early stages of doing that, you will both groups will find this, I think, a very useful webinar. Great. So let's start then. So what do we mean by empowerment? That really is the first question. So here we're reframing empowerment as more than just having tools. It's about enabling people to make decisions, take initiative, and focus on meaningful work. Now, AI plays a role here, I would say, by moving friction, making it easier for people to access information, eliminate routine admin, and feel confident in how they spend their time. So empowerment really, and I think this is an important point, is about culture, giving people permission to use and explore these tools because there is a certain amount of nervousness, I think, about adopting them. Are we doing the right thing on here? What can we do? What can't we do? And this sometimes, I think, holds people back. But what used in the right way, AI can aid with clarity, tools that support better, faster decisions. It will give your employees a certain amount of autonomy, in other words, the freedom to act without micromanagement. And it will free them up in terms of helping them not to have to do so many repetitive tasks so that they can focus on more meaningful work, as well as giving them more skills, the skills and support to explore, adapt, and innovate. And as it says here, AI enables people to focus on what humans do best, thinking critically, solving problems, and building relationships. And I said in the last webinar, for those of you that were here, that critical thinking skills continue to be one of the most important skill sets that we need in businesses right now, no matter what the sector may be. And really, AI cannot help us with that. We still need to be developing our own critical thinking skills. But what AI can do is to give us more information to help us make better decisions. Okay, so the idea behind AI, or one of the most valuable aspects of AI, I would argue, is that it frees up human potential. And we're going to focus on what AI does well, which is automating repetitive tasks. And this is often where burnout builds up from scheduling, inbox overload, reporting. AI reduces that load so people can focus on higher impact work like strategic thinking, creative tasks, and client relationships. So just have a look at this. Let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So in terms of automating routine tasks, admin, scheduling, data entry, status updates, reduces the mental load and busy work here. And then with enhancing decision making, you have the benefit of real-time insights and productive analysis, helps people to act with clarity and confidence. And then in terms of supporting creativity, it assists with idea generation, content drafting, and problem solving. And it's great for first drafts and creative momentum. So what it can do is it can give you a sort of an outline. You might ask it to flesh the outline up in certain ways, or certainly it will spark your critical thinking. Great. So let's just sticking with obviously how AI frees up human potential. Beyond efficiency, AI also improves well-being, and that's really an important point. So when people spend less time on tedious admin, they experience less mental fatigue and more job satisfaction. So happier staff, and as we know, happier staff, better productivity. That's really the point. So empowerment here is as much about emotional energy as it is about saved time. And I like this quote here, which says AI doesn't replace talent, it unlocks it. And that's really the idea, I think, behind AI. So let's move on to AI as a decision-making and problem-solving tool. So this slide addresses one of the biggest misconceptions. In other words, that AI will take over decision-making. And in reality, it helps people to make better decisions faster. That's really the point. It analyzes complex data and suggests options, but the humans still have to apply context, ethics, and judgment. It doesn't completely understand those things. So think of AI as a co-pilot. That's how I would phrase it, really. But just looking at this in more detail. So AI supports smarter, faster decisions by analyzing complex data quickly. So it identifies trends, gaps, and risks from large data sets, which obviously reduces time spent on manual analysis. In fact, I would say that one of the greatest benefits that AI provides is that ability to spot patterns in the data. Very useful. And then generating scenarios and solutions, it provides suggestions, alternatives, or forecasts, helps teams to explore what if options or scenarios. And then in terms of clarifying uncertainty, it surfaces insights hidden in the data, which offers decision support, not decision replacement, as we said. And it complements human judgment. So AI plus the human insight, equals stronger problem solving. People ask the right questions and AI finds the right patterns. And as it says here, we've got this excellent quote here from McKinsey, which says that AI doesn't make decisions for us, it helps us make smarter ones, which is very, very true. Um, right, so let's move on to some real world examples of AI-driven productivity. And we're going to start within the sector, the real estate sector. JLL, obviously leading real estate organization, um, have found that AI speeds up property valuations for them, which is a major time saver. So a number of teams use AI within JLL, but to give you an example, the legal teams use ChatGPT and Copilot to produce first drafts, freeing up time for client engagement. And Released is supporting property managers by automating communication and alerts. And these tools reduce admin and allow staff to focus on people and priorities. So some massive benefits there. You can see here that it is using AI to automate property valuations, cutting turnaround time by up to 60%, which I think you'll agree is pretty impressive. And now let's have a look at an example from a more sort of not necessarily a real estate sector, but a broader example. Salesforce Einstein, Salesforce having been clients of mine actually in the past. And what we're going to look at here is looking at how AI has helped Salesforce Einstein across different departments. Because what it's been doing is AI recommends next best actions for the account managers based on client data and behavior. And so what we've got here is some examples of different departments using AI in different ways, but in a very beneficial way. So having a look here at the HR teams at Salesforce Einstein, use AI for tasks like CV screening, matching candidates to job descriptions and drafting job descriptions as well. The marketing teams use it to generate social posts, email campaigns, and analyze customer engagement. And the finance teams use it for forecasting, invoice processing, and spend analytics. And the sales and account management teams use the tools like Salesforce AI to recommend next steps or identify upsell opportunities. So it's used in a number of different ways, quite extraordinary there. AI boosts productivity when it supports, not replaces human judgment and creativity. I think important to put that point across as well. Lovely. So let's having a look at empowerment more than just tools. Giving someone an AI tool isn't enough. They need a mindset shift as well to go from fearing change to being curious about new possibilities. That fear of change is something that is normal. We tend as a species to fear change. It's almost like how we're wired. I suspect it might go down to our origin as a species, fight or flight. You left the cave. On one side, there was a saber-toothed tiger that might bite you. You go right, a poisonous spider poisons you. So we're hardwired to be very, very cautious. So I think that anything that the leadership team can do in terms of allaying those fears and creating a culture and an environment where people can feel that they can dip their toe in the water and experiment and try things for themselves without there being a sort of blame culture attached to it is going to be hugely, hugely helpful. So I think, as I say, leaders play a key role here by creating environments where teams feel safe to experiment and innovate. So looking at mindset shift here, we need to move our staff on from fear of replacement to curiosity and exploration. Because as we know, and I think we touched on it in the last webinar, many staff now feel slightly concerned that their roles are going to be made redundant as a result of AI. But that, in fact, is not the case. The case is, as the last webinar suggested, and what I'm going to suggest now, is that those who can use AI will have an advantage over those who cannot. And those who cannot use AI are going to become increasingly sidelined. So we need to be ahead of the curve, or at least moving with the curve, rather than ending up behind the curve. So what any organization, the leadership team of any organization can do in order to create a sort of exploratory culture is to move staff from fear of replacement to curiosity and exploration. Because empowerment begins with permission to learn, to test, and adapt. Now, also trusted autonomy. People need to feel trusted to experiment with the IA tools. Micromanagement kills innovation. Now, I appreciate that within the real estate sector, there are many areas that are highly confidential. We're not suggesting that we give your staff free range to go off and do lots of things that would leave you open, obviously, to sensitive information, going into the public domain. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I am talking about, though, looking at those things, being very clear with staff as to those areas you do think it's appropriate for your staff to be able to, as I say, experiment with AI. We need to remember, of course, that some AI tools are more regulated and have more security features than others. And for instance, it has been said that Copilot is a bit more regulated than ChatGPT 4. So that might be one decision you might make, which is that rather than using ChatGPT, you might perhaps use Copilot instead. Now, clear communication and support. Explain why AI is being produced. This is enormous in any change management piece. What often goes wrong, in my opinion, within organizations is that the purpose of the change is not properly communicated to staff, which leads to fear. It leads to paranoia. And there is a certain amount of paranoia, as I said before, that is sort of attached to this whole idea of AI at the moment. But we need to be very clear with staff about why it's being introduced, not to replace jobs, but rather to get rid of mundane, repetitive tasks and to free up creative thinking. So we need to provide training, not just access. And I would argue that training should be small, micro training. I'm not talking about putting your staff in 3 to 4 day long courses. I think that's too much. I think it might be an hour long or a 2 hour long module, something like that. Do it on a modular basis. That is going to be very useful. In actual fact, Bayfield, in partnership with myself, we offer that sort of training. Right. So the other point is around cultural readiness as well. So we're looking at more than just tools here. So cultural readiness is important because, of course, culture matters. If people are afraid of getting things wrong, they won't experiment with AI. That's the point. So empowerment means having space to test, learn, and grow without judgment. And that requires leadership, support, and trust. And I quite like the quote here, AI alone doesn't empower people, culture and leadership do. And I think that's really an important point. So let's come on to the human edge, key skills in the AI age. Here's really the heart of the session. AI can do a lot, but it can't think critically, it can't empathize or exercise sound judgment. That's our edge, that's the human edge. As AI gets more capable, we need to double down on our soft skills, asking good questions, adapting to change, and collaborating thoughtfully. So just let's have a look at these areas here. So critical thinking, don't just accept AI outputs, question them, ask, does this make sense? Is it ethical? Is it helpful? Then in regard to adaptability, embrace new tools and ways of thinking, stay open to change and continuous learning. And then with regard to collaboration, know when to use AI and when to lean on human experience. So combine strengths across people and tech. And that is the magic of AI. When humans and AI are working in partnership with each other, that's where we get the very best results. We cannot simply, what's the word? We can't simply sort of dump all of the responsibility onto AI. It doesn't work that way. And then in terms of initiative, exploring, testing, and taking ownership of productivity tools. Don't wait to be told, lead the change. Let's have a look at getting started then, some practical tips on that. Start small. Use accessible tools like ChatGPT or Copilot to draft emails, summarize notes, or create outlines. Another easy way of using it is if you've got a very long report that you don't have time to read, you can attach a PDF version of that report to ChatGPT. It will read it for you. And if you ask it to, if you prompt it to, it will come up with the main points that we need to take away from that document. So very useful there. Identify the tasks that take too long and test AI support. No need for a massive strategy here, just small practical wins will build up the momentum. And then just sticking with practical tips for teams, offer micro training, share examples, and let other people teach each other. Most importantly, create a space where people feel safe to strive and try. Celebrate what works and learn what doesn't work. And that's how empowerment grows. To let you know that we do offer an organizational seminar here. I mean, if today's topic has sparked ideas, we offer a more in-depth 2 hour seminar for organizations. It includes things like demos, practical case studies, tailored discussions for your industry, and it's a great next step for teams looking to engage more confidently with AI. You can see the sections here that the 2 hour session covers. So if that's something that is of interest to you, do get in touch with Sonia, and she will let you know more about it, and we'll be in touch.